Yes.
Riff away.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, team in Philippines. It's a pleasure to send you this video message. At one day, I hope to meet all of you and spend a little bit more time with you, but it's been fantastic hanging out with Albert while he's been in town here in New York. We were just chatting. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself, and then also certainly give you guys props for helping us set up an extension of our U.S. operations in Manila. If you don't know me, my name is James Douglas. I am now the head of media here in the U.S. for REPRISE. Very excited by the new role. I get the chance now to play around a lot more actively in search and social and in mobile programmatic, and really looking forward to extending our partnership with you guys across more verticals than just social. My career started, I was just saying to Albert, my career started back in digital back in 1998 when I actually began my career building search engines at a startup that was earlier even than Google. I remember, I oftentimes tell the story that the company that I worked with, the search engines that I was helping to build out, it was Ask Jeeves, if you're old and you remember those guys.
Yes.
I helped build out all of the Ask Jeeves around the world. That was one of my very first jobs in the digital space. But I was going to say, I remember a fantastic meeting where a lot of us were sitting around a table kind of like this. We were talking because we had gone public and everybody was happy and we were having massive, wonderful champagne-filled parties of celebration. We had a lot of cash and we were like, hey, we should go out and buy company, buy another search engine to try and build market share and build broader capabilities. So we passed around all these folders, and one of them was Google. If ever there was a bad decision made, and I have to say, I wasn't really part of the decision making. This was more CEO and mergers and acquisition guys. I was just more of a consultant, had a background. We ended up buying this fantastic company called Direct Hit, which you may have never heard of, but we passed on Google really because we were thinking, and the discussion around the room was more around the algorithm. And Direct Hit's algorithm was based more on user-tracked behaviors. So if someone basically clicked on a search link and then went to a site and stayed on that site for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or visited multiple pages on that site, that was deemed to be more of a credible algorithmic factor than, if you recall Google back in the day, it was all about link popularity. So who was linking to whom? And if more sites were linking to another site, that was deemed to be much more of a relevant indicator of relevance and popularity. The reason why you've never heard of Direct Hit is once we bought the company and once we started to dig into the technology, database processing speed at that time really couldn't process a lot of the user-tracked behaviors. I mean, we were really tracking like individuals. It was much, much, much easier, if you can imagine, to track link popularity because you could do that offline. You didn't have to build critical mass and scale, and you didn't need to have like significant database processing speed to kind of keep updating and keep, kind of refining your result set. So with the challenge that we ran into pretty early was we would only update our search engine probably every 30 days, whereas Google, because they were able to do it in a much more efficient fashion, they were updating it multiple times a day. So immediately Google's popularity started to soar because search results were incredibly relevant. You would ask for something and you'd get back exactly the best site. I mean, back in the day, I don't know if you recall, how old are you, by the way, Albert?
35.
Yeah, I'm much older than you. Yes. Back in the day, you would search for stuff and just random stuff would come up. I mean, it was hard, and that's what we were testing and tweaking. So, I tell this story just in the sense that back in the early days of dot-com startups and digital kind of innovation, even the greatest idea at the time, you needed to make sure that, it was sustainable and that, you had the database processing capabilities to really compete with something that was much more efficient and much more effective, I think, at really delivering end results. So my background started in search. I'm really excited to get a chance to kind of dive back into search. Last 4 or 5 years, I really kind of focused pretty much exclusively on social because it's fascinating. It's always changing. It's super complex. We're talking about creative assets and creative messaging and video units and takeovers of mobile devices. which is just much more fun and exciting, plus audience-based targeting rather than keywords and keyword-based targeting. So for me, I mean, I really love diving into social, and I've also spent a lot of time in my career doing programmatic display. So for us now within the new REPRISE here in the US, and hopefully something that starts to kind of roll out more consistently from a global perspective, because I know the offices of REPRISE in the UK do it one way, and the REPRISE in Australia do it another way. And I'm, learning about how the Philippines does it and how Malaysia does it. But ultimately, we'd love to start to build better consistency so that we can work together a lot more effectively, not just on social, as we've been doing to date, but also on search and social and programmatic, but also in a very integrated fashion so we can start to really do true digital activations in an omni-channel or cross-channel fashion. So, all in, you can tell, hopefully from this video that's been going on for about 6 minutes now, that I can chat for ages. But ultimately, genuinely appreciate all the hard work and dedication, Albert, that you've brought to the team, and introducing me to Alan and Juliet and all the various team members. I'm very excited to get a chance to work with you, and really look forward to extending the partnership moving forward into next year.
Thank you, James. One of the questions we have is like, what will be your message to like the managing directors of UM and Initiative, and to the media planners and buyers in terms of how it's going moving forward? Because US is ahead of us, and by all means, we'd like to wish to. What are your learnings as you move, as the industry move more digital?
Well, I think what we do here in the States is always kind of work to counsel the leadership of the media agencies. If you think the media has evolved so much, and it continues to evolve almost on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. Digital, in its entirety, more people are obviously moving to consume content in so many different ways. Yeah. Certainly you can watch TV, but you're on your mobile device a lot more than you ever were, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. So I think the essential sort of advice or guidance that we provide UM is constantly challenging the norm. Not just always invest 50% of your budget or 60% of your budget in TV. Kind of challenge, like, who's your audience? If your audience skews very, very young, below the age of 30, there's a high likelihood here in the States that they have never been a cable subscriber, that they don't really watch TV anymore. They stream on their laptops or on their mobile devices. It's just what millennials do. So telling that story and helping to challenge the kind of pre-hold conception that you have to do things in a very set fashion because all 50 years of TV buying learning help kind of set these standards is really kind of what we do, and the types of typical meetings that we have on a day-to-day basis. Now, with your day-to-day media planners or people who are in the weeds, I think that's where I love working with them. Usually it's in a more of a training or educational type of fashion. So saying, oh, well, let me show you how social actually works, or let me show you how to build an audience, and get them into the tools, get them into the platforms. Because, ultimately I think once you start to debunk some of the complexity of buying, you start to hear programmatic, and you start to hear words like DBM, double click bid manager, and you're like, oh, holy cow, it's this really complex tool that will take me years and years and years to master. Yeah. Actually, when you dive in and show them and say, oh, let's build an audience, you want to target, people in California between the ages of 18 to 24 who like these things or those things. In a few clicks, we can show them exactly how to do that, and that just starts to build a passion and an interest. And ultimately, we've been very successful in actually recruiting some of those people who are super passionate about the digital space or the social space or the search space to actually join our teams, because they're really, they're much more interested in not just, building a macro plan and doing, cross-channel sort of instructions, but they actually want to focus on digital and really focus a lot more aggressively on understanding from top to bottom how do you really build a plan, but also execute that plan and deliver on that plan. And for some people, they just love to do that. Yeah.
And how about for the young guys? So just started out in the Philippines, we have you have a very young team here. You have 2012, 2013 graduates, 2015, 2016.
Yep.
We have the same in the Philippines. And what will be your message to them? Because to them, some of them may still have doubts, like, digital as a career path. I mean, versus a marketing and an accounting path.
Yeah.
So what will be your message to them?
I honestly, since my career has been in digital for 20, 25 years now, I am, goodness, I'm approaching actually 30 if you think about it.
Yeah.
God, I'm getting old. Frankly, the simple advice is, the reason why I've always loved digital and why I've kind of focused on it so much is that it's constantly changing, and I love learning new things. I could have focused on search and just building the greatest search engines from top to bottom, but what I really love is the fact that social didn't exist 30 years ago. It only really has existed in the last 10, 15 years. So, ultimately these new kind of platforms and these new tools and these new ways of interacting constantly evolve. And I don't know what's next. I mean, Snapchat's been very fun to kind of ramp up and get on and kind of understand and then, master from an overall skill set. I love that. And I think the reason why I would sort of focus if you're a young individual straight out of college diving into digital, is it's more the excitement that what you're learning today is not going to be what you need to know or learn a year from now. It's going to constantly evolve and it's going to constantly change. And I think for people who are really passionate about learning, people who really love to kind of master new things, digital is absolutely the right place to go. Accounts, not that I don't love accounts people. I've been doing account management myself for a number of years. It's a different tact. You have to be exceptional at selling things and communicating with clients and understanding the psychiatry of what goes on in your client's head to really ensure that you're delivering the best success to drive business results. Right. I think it's just a different skill set. I think it's a different type of personality. If people really love interacting and speaking with individuals and people and really are outgoing and extroverted, certainly account management is a fantastic way to go. I just find it wicked boring because you're constantly selling and selling and selling. So my passion's always been in doing and executing and finding out best practices and processes to help improve digital buying and execution. So, for me, the cool thing about, someone straight out of college is I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was straight out of college. I was going down a different tack completely. And, I found this wonderful space, and I've just been able to flourish for a number of years. And I think it's a fantastic place to be.
Oh, wonderful. Last question. And, you have an amazing career, and you're one of the leadership team in North America. The last question is about what will be the key characteristics, let's say 3 or 5 key characteristics of someone who will be successful in digital, in the digital space.
Yeah. So number 1 is going to be curiosity and sort of that passion to learn that I was just talking about.
Yeah.
That's so incredibly important. So incredibly important. I think a second characteristic is someone who's not afraid to kind of dive into things and break things. I mean, digital... I think one of the things about a career in digital is you're not really creating like something tangible. You're oftentimes creating experiences or, a moment in time. And someone who's willing and fearless in the ability to kind of go in and dive into things and break things, I think is absolutely an important characteristic. Empathy. I think empathy is absolutely a very important characteristic as well. The way I consume content in digital, I love Reddit. I was just talking about Game of Thrones and Reddit.
Yeah,
I spend a lot of time on Reddit. I like to dive in and consume things, and I like to kind of interact. What I do is not the same as what you do. And the sites you love, the kind of the way in which you consume content. Empathy is important for me to understand that what I like to do is not really important. I need to sort of understand, other characteristics and other behaviors, and I need to be able to understand those patterns and trends. The fourth thing would be data. So I'm kind of leading into that with the empathy argument here, that data-driven insights and the ability to see patterns that appear in data to start to make smart decisions, I think is essential in digital. I mean, everything we do is tracked. Everything we do is monitored. And so the ability for you to be able to slice and dice data in a very effective, meaningful, and efficient fashion to find those insights quickly is incredibly important in digital. The fifth characteristic, I'm going to have to go with fun. I just, wrote in, you're meeting me first thing in the morning, probably 1 cup of coffee in, so apologies for the long-windedness of it. It gets more crisp, I think, later in the day. But on my train ride in, I ride in with a lot of lawyers and bankers and people dressed up in suits, and I'm always the guy coming in jeans, having fun with things. Digital has always been, an interesting, different vertical. Mm-hmm. It's not your classical doctor, lawyer, accountant type of role. It's a fun role, and I think one of the key elements that has made me really kind of very passionate about working with young people is that my first job I had to dress up in a suit every day and I was miserable most of the time. This is not what digital is.
Right.
It's really again going back to curiosity and breaking things. It's really challenging the norm, trying to find new ways and new patterns to interact with someone, to build apps that ensure a taxi comes when you want it to come, and you can see that. I mean, things like this, it's all about disruption in the space, and I think ultimately, you've got to have fun with it, and really be passionate about diving in and just breaking some rules. So I think that would be my fifth characteristic.
Wonderful. Thank you, James, for sharing this morning and this tips.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.